So great a famine through pestilence. The rain extends towards the length of the Arctic pole.
For 2024, the sensational claims continue. Everyone buzzed with claims of 16th century astrologer Nostradamus's predictions for 2024. Predictions include unresolved events from the previous year, global catastrophes, and a potential conflict. But how reliable are these forecasts? Join us in this video while we reveal the mystery about what's going to happen in this year. Inflation, lack of food, cannibalism. In a quatrain from The Ages for the following year, Nostradamus wrote, "The price of wheat is very high. This man is stirring. In his despair, he will eat his fellow man." Interpreting the quatrain, he is warning of high food prices, which will dramatically affect the cost of living. Note that the big challenges of 2024 are interest rates and inflation. The problem with supply chains, the energy crisis, as well as the high transport costs combined with monetary policy, make any increase in interest rates useless, while there is a possibility that this will cause new problems without having the previous ones solved. We are already watching inflation soar to the highest rate of the last decade in the United Kingdom, the USA, Germany, and the other major economies, not to mention the smaller ones. That will turn people one against the other, as our survival implies the extermination of the opposing team. This is how cannibalism begins. Rise of cryptocurrencies, collapse of banknotes. Nostradamus wrote a book with about 1,000 French quatrains divided into ages, most of which are undated prophecies for which he is famous to this day. One of them says, "Copies of gold and silver were inflated. After then, they were thrown into the lake. Everything was exhausted and dissolved by the debt. All scripts and links will be removed." We can understand that the copies of gold and silver are the banknotes, which, according to the prophecy, will lose much of their value because of their inflation and the extremely large debt all over the world. The quatrain has double reading. Nostradamus refers to the rise of cryptocurrencies during the year 2024. Copies of gold and silver can be considered cryptocurrencies that copy the status of precious metals as a reserve asset. And encryption is spreading at the speed of a Formula One racing car. New intangible coins will appear, and investors will flock to their digital world, as known as metaverse. Nostradamus warns about the collapse of fiat money, like coins and banknotes. Let not this prophecy be regarded as an exhortation to the market cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies were invented because banknotes have started and are still losing in value. Let's not forget that cryptocurrencies are wind-blown. They do not represent some constant value, such as gold. The moon at night on top of the high mountain. The young sage with the lonely brain sees it. He is invited by his students to be immortal. Eyes to the south, hands on the torso, bodies on the fire. This enigmatic quatrain is a prediction of artificial intelligence's rise. A gloomy situation. There's another quatrain that consolidates Nostradamus's reputation as the prophet of destruction. The lyrics state, "For 40 years the rainbow will not be visible. For 40 years it will appear every day. The dry land will dry out more, and there will be big floods." The prophecy is indeed frightening. As the two superpowers have entered a new era of the Cold War, nuclear disasters will happen at any time in the new year. On the other hand, droughts and floods of biblical proportions threaten the planet. Within 2 decades, glaciers in Africa will be gone. More than 100 million poor people are threatened by droughts, floods, or extreme heat, while climate change can reduce the Black continent's GDP by 3%. The War Scroll and the 7 Wars to Doomsday. Nostradamus was a prophet, and his writings in the 1500s contained predictions that some believed had similarities to events in history. In the War Scrolls, he mentioned the occurrence of 7 wars. It is unclear if these wars have already taken place or if they are still to come. The Dead Sea War Scroll is a harrowing discovery that delves into the concept of mankind's destruction, from economics to military force. Composed of great detail and a foreboding tone, this ancient text provides insight into a cataclysmic event of epic proportions. Within its pages, the scroll elucidates the devastating consequences that befall humanity in the wake of this destruction. It vividly describes a world ravaged by chaos, where cities lie in ruins and nature lies desolate. The scroll warns of a future where hope is extinguished and darkness reigns supreme. The issue of growing income inequality and the economic collapse of 2008 are indeed significant indicators of the challenges we face. This widening gap between the rich and the poor has far-reaching implications for our society. It not only threatens social cohesion, but also hampers economic progress and deepens the sense of despair among the less privileged. The 2008 economic crisis highlighted the fragility of our economic systems and the repercussions of unregulated greed. It brought to light the inherent flaws within our financial institutions and the devastating impact it can have on the most vulnerable members of society. Unfortunately, the aftermath of this crisis has not resulted in meaningful reforms to rectify these systemic issues. Addressing the issue of income inequality requires a comprehensive approach. It necessitates the implementation of policies that promote fair wages, equitable distribution of resources, and access to quality education and healthcare. Furthermore, it requires holding those accountable who engage in unethical practices that exacerbate these disparities. We must learn from the lessons of the past to prevent further economic collapse and ensure a more equitable future for everyone. By prioritizing inclusive economic policies and addressing the root causes of income inequality, we can collectively work towards a brighter future where the gap between the rich and the poor is significantly reduced. As for whether we are currently heading towards an ultimate war that will bring an end to everything, it is difficult to say. The future is uncertain and unpredictable. While there have been numerous conflicts and tensions throughout history, it is impossible to determine if any one of them will escalate into a global, all-ending war within our lifetime. The end of King Charles III. The prophecy of Nostradamus that could cover King Charles III has triggered a lot of discussions. It was alleged that King Charles of Great Britain and Northern Ireland was diagnosed with prostate cancer only 20 months after ascending to the throne upon the death of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022. This news has raised a lot of concern and speculation. The British author Mario Redding specializes in the work of Nostradamus and found a prophecy that seems to match this diagnosis. He analyzed Nostradamus's prophecy and interpreted it in the words, "Because they disapproved of his divorce, a man who later they considered unworthy, the people will force out the king of the islands. A man will replace who never expected to be king." Nostradamus also predicted the death of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022, accurately stating her age at the time of passing. Mario Reading's analysis of this prophecy states, Queen Elizabeth II will die, circa 22, at the age of around 96. The prophecy suggests that King Charles's reign might be cut short. One part of the prophecy reads, King of the Isles driven out by force, replaced by one who will have no mark of a king. This mysterious line has led to many theories about what might happen next. Some people think it means King Charles could be forced to step down because of his health. Others believe it might hint at a more dramatic removal from power. With rumors that King Charles III might abdicate, many are curious who the next in line would be. The most evident candidate is Prince William, as he is the first in line to the British throne. William, the Prince of Wales, has been preparing for this role for many years. His dedication to royal duties and his increasing involvement in significant matters show he is ready to step up if needed. Close friends and sources have mentioned his growing interest in gaining leadership and his desire to make a meaningful impact, indicating he could be ready to assume the role of king sooner than expected. However, This line of succession has been complicated by another prophecy from Nostradamus. The prophecy suggests that the new ruler will have no mark of a king, which has led to speculation that someone unconventional might take the throne. This has brought Prince Harry into the conversation. Despite stepping back from royal duties and moving to the United States, Prince Harry's return to the UK during his father's health crisis has fueled these speculations. His departure from traditional royal norms and his strained relationship with the family increase the mystery of the prophecy. Prince Harry's decision and lifestyle, which do not align with conventional royal expectations, and his controversies make him an unlikely but possible candidate. Even though it is difficult for many to imagine him becoming a king, this prophecy has given rise to several hypotheses. Some believe that it may signal a significant change in the order of succession in the royal family, possibly due to unexpected circumstances or a crisis within the monarchy. Critics argue that his writings are too generalized to be considered as predictions. For example, the prophecy about the King of the Isles could be any king, and not necessarily King Charles III. This confusion has led to various interpretations, with some historians and theologians suggesting different outcomes. According to some theologians, he could have suggested a wider shift in the political system of the UK. The phrase, "someone with no mark of a king," could imply a shift away from the monarchy altogether, suggesting a move towards a more democratic form of government. This interpretation, while radical, shows the ongoing discussions about the future of the British monarchy and its relevance in the modern period. The end times and the Middle Eastern Antichrist. In a world gripped by uncertainty and unrest, the prophecies of Nostradamus have captivated believers and skeptics alike for centuries. Among his many predictions, none are as chilling as those foretelling the end times and the rise of a Middle Eastern Antichrist. With a reputation for accuracy, Nostradamus has unnerved generations with his eerily precise visions of future events. Now, in this article, we delve into the mysterious verses penned by the renowned seer and explore his warnings of cataclysmic events that could reshape our world forever. As we explore the prophecies of Nostradamus, we are confronted with chilling anticipation. How accurate were his visions? How do his predictions align with the current geopolitical landscape? And what do they mean for the future of humanity? From wars and natural disasters to the rise of a leader shrouded in darkness, our journey into the world of Nostradamus promises to be a thought-provoking and unsettling one. Join us as we unravel the cryptic verses and attempt to interpret the fate of our world as predicted by Nostradamus. First, let's understand Nostradamus' predictions about the end times. Nostradamus' predictions about the end times have fascinated scholars and enthusiasts for centuries. He wrote extensively about the events that would lead to the end of the world, using a combination of cryptic language and symbolic imagery. One of his most famous prophecies, known as Century X, Quatrain 72, speaks of a great conflagration that will engulf the world, bringing about the end of civilization as we know it. This verse, along with many others, has sparked intense debate and interpretation among those who study Nostradamus' works. The key to understanding Nostradamus' predictions lies in deciphering his symbolic language. His verses often contain metaphors and allegories that require careful analysis. For example, he frequently refers to the Great King of Terror and the Third Antichrist, which many believe to be references to major world events and influential figures. By studying the historical context and looking for parallels between Nostradamus' words and actual events, researchers have attempted to uncover the true meaning behind his prophetic verses. How about the concept of the Middle Eastern Antichrist in Nostradamus' prophecies? One of the most intriguing aspects of Nostradamus' prophecies is the concept of the Middle Eastern Antichrist. According to his writings, the Antichrist will rise to power in the Middle East, wielding immense influence and causing widespread chaos and destruction. The Antichrist is described as a figure of darkness who will bring about immense suffering and turmoil before ultimately meeting his demise. The idea of a Middle Eastern Antichrist has sparked intense speculation and debate. Some believe that Nostradamus' predictions align with the rise of certain political leaders in the region, while others argue that the concept should be interpreted metaphorically rather than literally. Regardless of the interpretation, the notion of a powerful and malevolent figure emerging from the Middle East continues to capture the imagination of those fascinated by Nostradamus' prophecies. Let's analyzing specific verses and passages related to the end times and the Middle Eastern Antichrist to gain a deeper understanding of Nostradamus' predictions about the end times and the Middle Eastern Antichrist. It is essential to analyze specific verses and passages in his writings. One such verse, Century 4, Quatrain 50, speaks of a great earthquake in the month of May. Some researchers believe that this verse may be a reference to a future earthquake that will strike the Middle East, triggering a chain of events that will lead to the rise of the Antichrist. Another intriguing verse, Century 8, Quatrain 77, mentions a great king of terror who will descend from the skies. This verse has been interpreted by some as a prediction of a catastrophic event involving an aerial attack or the use of advanced weaponry. The symbolism employed by Nostradamus makes it challenging to ascertain the exact meaning of these verses, but they undoubtedly add to the enigma surrounding his predictions. Now, kometu, the historical events that could potentially align with Nostradamus' predictions. Throughout history, many have attempted to link Nostradamus' predictions to actual events. Some believe that his prophecies accurately foretold major historical events, such as the rise of Napoleon Bonaparte or the assassination of John F. Kennedy. When it comes to the end times and the Middle Eastern Antichrist, there are several events that could potentially align with Nostradamus' predictions. For instance, Nostradamus' references to a great king of terror and a third Antichrist have led some to speculate that these verses may be connected to the rise of Adolf Hitler and the atrocities committed during World War II. Others have suggested that the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East, particularly the rise of extremist groups, may be fulfilling Nostradamus' prophecies. While these connections are speculative at best, they highlight the enduring fascination with Nostradamus' prophecies and the desire to find meaning in his cryptic verses. The death of Nostradamus. Nostradamus is one of the most controversial figures of the past 5 centuries. His followers firmly believe his prophetic visions were a gift from God. Skeptics point out his quatrains, as his prophecies are called, are vague and often nonsensical, so it's easy to assign them any meaning you like. Born in 1503 in Provence, France, he was one of 9 children of the local notary. He was trained in his studies by his grandfather, a noted physician. At the age of 14, he entered the University of Avignon but was forced to leave after an outbreak of plague. He disengaged from society, disappearing to travel the countryside for 8 years. He used this time to study and experiment with herbal medicines. He enrolled in the University of Montpellier to become a doctor, and was later expelled when it was learned that he had been an apothecary, a trade banned by the university. He became famous for his discovery of the rose pill that he claimed protected against the plague. In 1531, he married and lost his wife and 2 children to the plague. He later remarried, fathered 6 children, and settled in Provence. His family's roots were Jewish, but they converted to Catholicism to avoid persecution during the Inquisition. Little Michel was intelligent beyond his years. His grandfather saw potential in the boy and taught him languages, mathematics, and astrology. In 1522, he began studying medicine at the University of Montpellier and received his license to practice 3 years later. Like many others with academic degrees, he Latinized his name to Nostradamus. Over the next few years, Nostradamus used his training to treat victims of the plague all over France and Italy. Unlike many physicians of the time, Nostradamus refused to bleed his patients. Instead, when he was treating the sick, he practiced proper aseptic techniques and administered high doses of vitamin C. He also pushed for the speedy removal of the rotting corpses from city streets for hygienic purposes. His high cure rate made him a local celebrity. Sadly, although he saved so many others from the clutches of the plague, his wife and 2 children were not so lucky. Heartbroken and under suspicion by the Inquisition for an offhand remark he made about a religious statue, Nostradamus became a bit of a nomad. Eventually, he felt safe enough to settle down and chose Salon in the south of France as his new home base. Nostradamus remarried, fathered 6 children, and turned his attention away from medicine toward the study of the occult. He'd spend hours meditating in front of a bowl of water, a practice called scrying. Nostradamus would fall into a trance and then record his visions. He wrote and published his first almanac, which was a sensation in France, encouraging him to continue. His prophecies had become the focus of his almanacs by 1554, and Nostradamus decided to pour all his energy into a massive undertaking he called Centuries. His plan was to compose 10 volumes of 10 predictions covering the events of the following 2,000 years. Quite an ambitious undertaking. Opinions about his prophetic abilities were as divided in his time as they are in ours. Some people thought Nostradamus was an agent of the devil, others a garden-variety conman or nut job. But he did have his supporters in high places as well. Catherine de' Medici, the Queen of France, appointed him counselor and physician in ordinary to King Henri's court. When Nostradamus warned the king to avoid jousting, 3 years later he died when a lance pierced his eye in a jousting match. Nostradamus was plagued with arthritis and gout for most of his adult life. In his final years, he developed edema that led to congestive heart failure. In June 1566, he had his will drawn up. On July 1st, he called the local priest and asked to receive the last rites. He told a close friend he would not live to see the next day. He was right. Nostradamus died before awakening on July 2nd, 1566. The enigma behind his prophecies. Michel de Nostradam, also known as Nostradamus, was a French astrologer, doctor, and psychic who is best remembered for his stunning predictions written in enigmatic verses. Nostradamus initially became famous as an almanac writer during the time of the printing revolution. He was one of its first best-selling authors. Then he embarked on a history of the future, looking at everything up to the year 3797 AD, nearly 1800 years from now and beyond. For nearly half a millennium, Nostradamus and his prophecies concerning various places and periods have ignited people's imaginations and stirred fear. In his home in the town of Salon de Provence, this fortune-telling astrologer purportedly foresaw the future of humanity and the calamities destined to befall the world. Due to the ambiguity of his predictions, they were constantly subjected to new interpretations, depending on the historical context. As early as the 17th century, one of Nostradamus's critics, full of disdain, noted that people would invoke his prophecies when significant events occurred. For example, the death or success of certain personalities, fires in palaces or bridges. Similarly, we recall Nostradamus at the beginning of the 21st century in the context of skyscraper collapses, cathedral fires, or pandemics. The portrait of this very human figure, a man who liked to stroke his beard, sharply contrasts with the dark cliches of a prophet of future centuries' misfortunes. Nostradamus' own confessions and the opinions of his contemporaries indeed paint a complex picture of his personality. Nostradamus claimed that, like the Greek physician Paul of Aegina, or even like Odysseus, he traveled extensively around the world. In the epitaph he composed for himself, he boldly presented himself as the Titus Livius of the future. Each year his prophecies were feverishly awaited, but since they could cause public disorder, They filled Chancellor Michel de Hospital with apprehension. They also evoked ironic reactions, confusion, or admiration from the ambassadors of Spain and England. After a visit to Italy, he began to dabble in occultism. Due to its success, he decided to write one annually, filling it with predictions that increased his fame and notoriety. Soon, aristocrats and royalty began to seek his advice on the future. French Queen Catherine de' Medici became his most important benefactor and chose him to be her astrologist and seer. He famously predicted the horrific death of the Queen's husband, Henri II of France. After the king's death, she named Nostradamus counselor and physician in ordinary to her son, King Charles IX. He began his book, Les Prophéties, at this time. Nostradamus publishes the volume of 4-line poems called quatrains. Readers of the time are confused by the author's use of multiple languages, word puzzles, and what was even then considered antiquated syntax. But perhaps even more baffling is the volume's title, The Prophecies. The Prophecies was initially met with outright skepticism and derision. Many believed Nostradamus to be either a fraud or mentally ill, possibly both. Nostradamus made a prediction about Henry II dying in a jousting accident, foretelling that a young lion would face the old in traditional combat. He shall be pierced through a gilded cage. The joust happened exactly as he foretold it. Both men had lions on their shields. Large shards went through the gilded visor of the king, one penetrating his forehead into his brain, the other between his eye and socket, destroying his eye. He died of infection of the brain 10 days later in agonizing death. After the king's death, his reputation as the seer of the future grew rapidly after the event, which was not necessarily a good thing at the time. It is well known that Nostradamus concealed the nature of his prophecies, which at that time was very politically incorrect and could have gotten him in a lot of trouble. He would have come into great conflict with the church if he put himself on a pedestal like Noah or Moses. Though he was afraid of beheading or incarceration from the church for religious grounds, he used word games and a combination of languages to hide messages. He recorded 942 poetic, prophetic quatrains in the book. He recorded the images he saw reflected in a small basin of water. Here is one quatrain that may predict the French Revolution. From the enslaved populace, songs, chants, and demands. While princes and lords are held captive in prisons, these will, in the future, by headless idiots, be received as divine prayers. In 1789, the French population revolted against the monarchy. The peasants took control of Paris and forced their demands on the government. The aristocrats were locked up, their money and possessions taken, and then executed en masse at the guillotine. Despite the controversy, the Prophecies eventually became one of the most widely read books in the world. It both astounded and terrified readers with its predictions about dreadful events to come. Is it possible Nostradamus received his prophetic visions because he was in touch with a higher power? It's an interesting theory and could help explain how Nostradamus was able to see and know things that would not happen for centuries, things he was trying to warn us about. Interpretations and debates surrounding Nostradamus prophecies. Nostradamus prophecies have been subject to intense interpretation and debate since their publication. Scholars, researchers, and enthusiasts have offered various interpretations of his verses, often based on their own cultural, historical, or political biases. Some believe that Nostradamus's predictions are entirely accurate and should be taken at face value, while others view them as mere coincidences or products of a fertile imagination. One of the main debates surrounding Nostradamus's prophecies is the question of their intended audience. Some argue that he wrote for the general public and intended his predictions to be understood by all, while others believe that his writings were meant for a select group of initiates who possessed the necessary knowledge to interpret his cryptic language. Ultimately, the interpretations and debates surrounding Nostradamus's prophecies serve to highlight the enduring fascination with his work and the ongoing quest to unravel the mysteries of the future. Nostradamus' predictions have not been without their fair share of criticisms and skepticism. Many skeptics argue that his prophecies are vague and open to multiple interpretations, making them inherently unreliable. They believe that the connections drawn between Nostradamus' verses and historical events are nothing more than coincidences, and that his supposed accuracy is simply a result of cherry-picking and confirmation bias. Critics also point out that Nostradamus' predictions are often written in a way that allows for retrospective interpretation. His verses are so enigmatic and open-ended that they can be applied to almost any event after the fact, leading to claims of prophetic accuracy where none may exist. While skepticism towards Nostradamus' predictions is understandable, it does not diminish the enduring fascination and widespread belief in his ability to foresee the future. Nostradamus' prophecies share some similarities with other religious texts that also predict the end times and the rise of a malevolent figure. For instance, the concept of the Antichrist is present in various religious traditions, albeit with different interpretations and cultural contexts. However, there are also significant differences between Nostradamus' prophecies and religious texts. Unlike religious prophecies, which are often rooted in faith and divine revelation, Nostradamus' predictions are based on his observations and interpretations of historical events. His approach is more akin to a historical prognostication rather than a religious prophecy. The similarities and differences between Nostradamus' prophecies and other religious texts provide valuable insights into the diverse ways in which humanity seeks to understand and interpret the future. One of the most chilling predictions attributed to Nostradamus is the outbreak of the Third World War. With the current global tensions and conflicts brewing in various parts of the world, many speculate that we are on the brink of a catastrophic war that will reshape the world order. Is Nostradamus' prophecy coming to fruition, or is there still hope for peace? In addition to the threat of war, Nostradamus also foresaw a great economic collapse that would plunge the world into chaos. With the recent economic turmoil and uncertainty caused by global events, could Nostradamus' prediction of a financial meltdown be closer than we think? Will we witness a collapse of the global economy, leading to widespread suffering and hardship? As we look to the stars for answers, are we truly alone in the universe, or are there forces beyond our comprehension at play? While Nostradamus' predictions may be open to interpretation, there is no denying the impact his prophecies have had on shaping our understanding of the future. Whether we believe in his foresight or dismiss it as mere coincidence, the warnings of Nostradamus serve as a sobering reminder of the fragility of our existence. The prophecies of Nostradamus continue to captivate our imaginations and fuel speculation about what lies ahead. Will we see the end times unfold in our lifetime, or is there still time to change our fate? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. The legacy of Nostradamus' words will endure for generations to come. While it is natural to feel apprehensive in these turbulent times, it is crucial to remain vigilant and united in our efforts to navigate through these challenges and strive for a more peaceful and harmonious future. Are we truly living in the end times? Only time will tell if Nostradamus' prophecies are coming to pass. Let us ponder the possibilities and prepare for whatever the future may hold. As we reflect on the turmoil and unrest in the world today, one cannot help but wonder if these are the signs of the end times. The ongoing conflicts in the Middle East seem to mirror the grim predictions of a biblical war, stirring fear and uncertainty in the hearts of many. Contemporary relevance of Nostradamus' prophecies and their impact on popular culture. Despite the passage of time, Nostradamus' prophecies continue to captivate the popular imagination. His predictions have become deeply ingrained in popular culture, often serving as inspiration for books, movies, and television shows. From apocalyptic scenarios to fictional portrayals of the Antichrist, Nostradamus' prophecies have left an indelible mark on our collective consciousness. The contemporary relevance of Nostradamus' prophecies can be seen in the ongoing fascination with conspiracy theories and the search for hidden meanings in world events. The allure of his cryptic verses lies in their ability to provide a sense of certainty and control in an uncertain world. By attempting to decipher Nostradamus' predictions, individuals seek to make sense of the chaos and find solace in the belief that the future can be foreseen. In this way, Nostradamus' prophecies continue to shape popular culture and influence our understanding of the future. Nostradamus' predictions about the end times and the rise of a Middle Eastern Antichrist have fascinated and unsettled generations. While skepticism and criticisms exist, the enduring fascination with his prophecies remains. His cryptic verses, filled with symbolism and allegory, continue to spark intense debate and interpretation. As we reflect on Nostradamus' predictions, we are reminded of the enduring human desire to understand and predict the future. Whether one believes in the accuracy of his prophecies or views them as mere coincidences, there is no denying the impact Nostradamus has had on our collective imagination. In a world filled with uncertainty, Nostradamus' predictions offer a glimpse into the possibilities that lie ahead. They serve as a reminder of the fragility of our existence and the need to navigate the complexities of our world with wisdom and discernment. Whether one is a believer, skeptic, or simply curious, Nostradamus' prophecies continue to captivate and challenge us, urging us to contemplate the fate of our world and our place within it.